Missiles Convoy. Thank you for coming back for another video review. Today we are taking a look at Iron Factory's EX-47 Void Tyrant. There's the box, just pictures of the figure, etc. This is on loan to me from Fuse 9. Taking me a while to get this video out. My apologies. He loaned these to me at TFCon. So just starting off with the figure itself, this is their take on a Gladiator Galvatron, I believe, from IDW. Basically his body before he ever became, he was never really a Decepticon. It was like a ancient lore thing, but it just generally works as a stylized G1 Galvatron. Let's get in close on that head sculpt actually. So I've got to say, this is a really nice head sculpt. The expression on the mouth is really good. I like the goatee detail, the sculpt of the nose, the sculpt of the cheeks. It's all very well done. My one complaint is that the eyes are, I wouldn't say they're too small, but they're completely obscured by the forehead crest. And that means that unless you get a really specific angle, and the eyes are painted well, but they only really light up on specific angles of lighting where, you know, you can actually get the perfect angle of lighting onto his eyes. It's not just a photography / video thing with my setup. I generally find them a bit hard to pick out, even in like daylight lighting or natural lighting. So that is like one complaint I have on an otherwise fantastic head sculpt. He comes with two. He also has a, I usually do accessories later, but he also has a more G1 accurate head sculpt, which is like, you know, whatever, but I don't really think that, I'm sure some people will like it more. Personally, for the sake of this toy, I feel like just going with the stylization works better with the rest of the figure. The face is, I think, largely the same. It's just the shape of the helmet has changed. This one does have 4 horns, which I think looks awesome. Let me zoom out again so you can take a look at the figure as a whole. Overall, I mean, proportionally, this guy is really strong. I like the smaller torso, the giant shoulder pads, and the large forearms, as well as these thick legs. It really does give him a good silhouette and presentation that I feel is missing from a lot of Galvatron toys. For example, New Age Darius looks really spindly and weak in my opinion. Sovereign looks like a brick shit house, right? I mean, he's always been an impressive looking toy, but he's never really looked that dynamic in my opinion. And a lot of the future 3PMP Galvatrons are also not looking to be particularly exciting visually. But this guy, you know, paint is minimal, but you've got silver accents here. You've got red on the torso, which is really nicely done. You've got some red here, some gray paint here, I guess gunmetal gray here. There's some minimal accenting throughout, and it overall works pretty well. The shade of purple is pretty nice, and of course translucent orange for the barrel. And he cleans up really well, actually. When I get into the articulation, so starting off with the head, we have a lot of range on the head. You can look all the way up, which is really nice. You can look down a bit, and then he can do a really nice side to side, as well as your, you know, to be expected 360. Shoulders have something going on. The shoulder pads can articulate upwards, and you can basically get out to 90 quite easily. Obviously universal, so you can mess with the shoulder pad and the universal joint to get the basic minimum range. You know, you get the 360, you get the 90 out. Unfortunately, you can't really get more, but it is what it is. You have a double jointed elbow. One issue with articulation, because of these, I feel like every Galvatron suffers from the back treads on his arms. His bicep swivel is a bit limited. Now you can always try to move that out of the way, but it looks ugly. So just something to keep in mind, the bicep swivel is a bit limited. You can still use it, it's enough for casual poses, but for the more extreme stuff, it might fail you. As I mentioned before, double jointed elbow for the full run, ball jointed wrists, which is how the wrist swap as well. Let's get over to the torso. I mean, this guy's toleranced really well. I mean, he's just like, yeah, rock solid. Nothing is too tight either, which is great. Ab crunch gets you about 45 degrees. We have a bunch of skirts. We have 2 side skirts out here. We have actually a rear skirt there, which gets you full spread on these ball joints. Gets you 90 degree forwards almost. You kind of clash right here, so you have to slightly rotate the thigh for the full 90. You get 90 degrees back, no problem. You have a thigh swivel right there, which is great. The knees are a little bit disappointing because you really only get 90 degrees. which is a bit of a shame. I wish he had more, I will say. This is a figure where there's not much that's getting in the way of the articulation. It's just a little bit limited for no reason. Not due to sculpt or anything, she doesn't have it in some places. And then finally for the ankles are a bit complicated. There's a hinge joint on the inside and a ball joint in here, so you can get some forward for sure. But when you go forward, you kind of limit the ankle tilt, I find. At the default position, you do get a decent enough ankle tilt, but it's not great. Again, you know, this figure is definitely one of those that feels like it's sculpt first, and it's really presence first because he has a lot of presence, he oozes it. But I feel like some things were compromised for that, namely the articulation. In Iron Factory standards, it's not actually that bad, and this is a little bit of an older figure, not that old, but slightly old. So, you know, it could have done a little bit more. He does have a nice spread of accessories. Most of them, again, as I mentioned, there's the alternate head. He has a alternate shoulder piece for his right shoulder, and this allows you to mount his cannon. Instead of mounting it here, you would put this piece on. There would be a port right here. There's a peg right there, and it would mount. I'll just show you visually. You have to have his arm straight the whole time, like the G1 cartoon, but it would mount like that. Switching the shoulder pads is just tedious and time consuming, so I'm not going to do it on camera, but I do have an image of him using that configuration in the gallery. And yeah, this thing attaches on this slot, which is really secure and nice. It can like articulate a bit, but that's mostly for transformation. So he looks good with that default setting, in my opinion. He gets really constricted with this, so I don't use it. He has mostly just a bunch of hands. So we have a pair of open hands, which are nicely sculpted. We have a pair of holding hands for his other accessory, which is just a general hold, the straight up hold. And then finally, we have a pair of angled holding hands, which are my favorite. Unfortunately, these are kind of softer than the other hands, almost, they feel, and softer than most Iron Factory hands I've handled. I don't remember them being this like brutally soft. So I kind of wish these were a little bit tighter up because they're loose on the ball joints and they're loose holding the aforementioned axe, right? Which you can hold like that, and then you can switch these out on the ball joint and you can hold it. Just to give you an example of what I mean. He can hold it. I don't know if this is because of the figure's age. After all, it is not a new figure, or if this just wore down over time, but this is a little bit loose and it comes off really, well, now it's not coming off. But that falls out pretty easily. The other hand can't even get the thing on because the hand is closed. So if you want to put it in this hand, you can actually disassemble the axe into 3 pieces. The axe head, so you can have a short axe if you want. And then there's the connector in the middle. And then finally the end handle. So you can have him hold it either here or here, depending on your preference, like so. So that's mostly that for accessories. A decent spread. I know some people probably wish it came with a gun like the original toy, but I'm not entirely disappointed for the price point. Seems adequate, I suppose. It's not anything to write home about, but it's okay. Let me get into some size comparisons. So just here with some Iron Factory Autobots. Here's Red Alert, a Carbot, and then Sea Spray, a Minibot. Honestly, it kind of feels small, I will say. Something I've been noticing with these supposedly bigger Iron Factory characters is that sometimes they end up feeling a little bit smaller than they should relative to other figures. I don't necessarily view Galvatron as giant, but I feel like maybe... I think the ratio he has with Sea Spray is the ratio he should have with Red Alert, if that makes sense. Because this is a Carbot, this is a Minibot. He should probably be like, his head should be here or the top of his, whatever this thing is called that he has. I have no idea if it's a name or not, but he does feel a little bit smaller than I expected. I do wonder if some more real estate could have also allowed them to include some more articulation engineering. So yeah, I do wish he was a bit bigger. Let me get some other size comparisons in here as well. Starting off with Deluxe Skullgrin. Core Class Bomb Burst. Let me zoom out. And then Legion Class Flak. And Doctor Wu's Shattered Glass Cosmos. Again, I kind of wish he was more towards Skullgrin's height, than instead of being firmly in between Bombburst and, G2 Trooper. I wish he was more up there with G2 Trooper, more like a classic deluxe size. He's a little bit short, but it's not the biggest deal in the world. I'm going to get him transformed, and then we're going to look at his alternate mode. Here are some quick alternate mode size comparisons. Obviously more hefty than a core. Let me get you out of here. And, yeah, I mean, I suppose he's about deluxe in length from the barrel. Somewhere between deluxe and a core overall in terms of mass. Let's get size conversion out of the way. Don't really care. So here's the alt mode. It looks like nothing. It really is just a guy folded up doing yoga. His hands are visible, etc. I mean, it's pretty much a nothing. It has the treads. You can mess with them. They are ball jointed to get you like whatever degree you want on the cannon, but you have minimal range. So there's not really much it does. It does look kind of cool. I like how these fins work. I like how, the back part of the legs folds up. But for the most part, I mean, it's just like whatever, man. Like it's not really like a thing. It just is. Then the transformation is just like lining things up and folding him up in certain ways. It does hold really well and everything's tabbed in and it's solid, but it's not really anything of note or value. It just looks cool because the robot mode stylization carries over, and that's all it has going for it. Again, the transformation to get there is not really fun or inspiring in any way. I have nothing to say about this. Again, basically final thoughts wise, let's just get into it. The exposed hands in alternate mode are kind of annoying. Darius also has exposed hands, but they hide a little bit better, and his arms are actually doing something except just being there on the side of the robot mode, on the alternate mode. So it's a little bit more forgivable. The transformation also wasn't really very fun, and the accessories, while like, a decent spread of hands and a melee weapon, overall feel a little bit like the usual for Iron Factory. Nothing to write home about or to be impressed by. However, all of those issues aside, even with the like limited articulation and for an Iron Factory release, I guess, and him being a little bit small and all that, the raw presence and sculpt of the robot mode is undeniable. I think if you can at least nail one thing at a decent price point, you're already ahead of the game, and the Iron Factory's Galvatron is the best Galvatron has looked, and as frankly as I'm concerned, will ever look. The only other G1S Galvatron I've seen that's this attractive is probably Sovereign, and this is way more dynamic than that. Yeah, I mean, there's something to be said about just like the pure raw aesthetic appeal of a toy, and also it being like rock solid and posing pretty well helps a lot. So I guess, if you want to call this like a one-moded guy, if you just really don't really care about the Transformers aspect, this guy's like a pretty good, I don't know. I mean, the robot mode is really nice. I think it's difficult for me to point this and be like, well, it's irredeemable because the alt mode is bad, or it's not worth the price, because shockingly, I think even just for the price of admission, which should only be $35, I think this has gotten more expensive on some sites, but the repaint is like $30. For that price, I think the robot mode is definitely worth the price of admission. I wouldn't pay over $40, especially since this is more like, there's a lot of Iron Factory toys that exist for this price point that have really cool robot modes and turn into cool things. So you can probably skip this unless you really like Galvatron or you love the bot mode. But just going to it informed, the alternate mode is not very good. But for the most part, I mean, it nails the robot mode, and that's more than I can say for another Legend scale Galvatron. I mean, it does one thing or two things really well. And that is enough for me to excuse or at least be able to say that, like, well, it has a glaring issue, a bad alternate mode and a mediocre transformation, but however, there's enough here that's worth checking out if you're interested. Is it a must-have? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. This is not a must-have. This is not a revolutionary Legends release. He just looks really cool. If you like how it looks, I would go for it. The robot mode is the main appeal. If you think the alt mode and the mediocre transformation will bore you, don't pick it up. But if you like how the robot mode looks, I think it's the move. I think he's worth the price if you pay under less than $40. That's basically it from me, guys. Thank you again to Fuse9 for letting me take a look at this figure. I personally really like it. I mean, personally, I would recommend it to like a friend if they're looking for a cool robot transformer. But I would also say all of its issues. So, you know, something to keep in mind. Again, not perfect, but the things he does well, he does really, really well. And there's just something to be said in this current atmosphere of things that aren't actually attractive to the majority and only fit the target demographic. You know, I'm being vaguely implicit about tune accuracy. There's something to be said about something that is just raw, aesthetically raw. And this is what this is. So it looks damn good. Anyways, that's it for me, guys. Have a great one. Catch y'all later. Peace.